Hello guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the German logistics system during World War II. On the Eastern Front, with the advent of Operation Barbarossa, the German army, the Wehrmacht, the Heer, was very reliant on horse-drawn cavalry to transport their supplies to Army Group Center, Army Group North, and Army Group South. Hitler made a mistake. He went to war with the Soviet Union before the German army was fully mechanized. They were not fully mechanized. And apparently, Army Group Center, they were supposed to receive 70 troop trains a day. But in reality, they were only receiving 30 troop trains a day, or 20. So army groups are not even being supplied because these people are incompetent. So let's look into the official documentation right here on Wikipedia. From 1942 to 1944, the primary task of the RVM was supporting the German war economy and supplying the enormous wheat needs of the Wehrmacht on the Eastern Front. The faltering situation in the East began presenting critical transport problems as early as January 1942. Army Group Center, which alone required 75 supply trains per day, in actuality received only 25 to 40. So that's the minimum amount of supply trains Army Group Center needed, which is 75. In actuality, in reality, they only receive, half of that? At best, 25 to 40, and that's a very, how's that work? That's a very generous estimate. So, at the request of Julius Dorpmüller, I don't know who that is, Hitler ordered the Ostbahn be subordinated to the RVM on 4th of January with a special branch office. The RVM thus expanded further and became responsible for all rail operations in occupation zones behind Army Field Rail Commands. So the army groups are not even being supplied. I believe Army Group North was the best supplied army group in the German army because they were able to logistically supply them through the ports in the Baltic Sea. Yeah. They captured many ports on the Baltic, the Baltic states. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Now, hold on. Yes. That army group was the best supplied army group. I mean, you can supply an army through a port, right? And they had many ports in the Baltic states that they captured. Now, let's look at the map and let's show you guys what we are talking about here. Hold on. Okay, so Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, the German army was besieging Leningrad. They never took it, but they were able to cut the railway lines at Krishi, but the ports supplying them was Tallinn, Riga. I mean, Tallinn is the one that's the shortest. It's gonna definitely cut your supply lines a lot, and it's closer to the front line. They could probably use the port of Narva too. A couple small ports. The best deep water port was Tallinn. And that was how Army Group North was being supplied. They didn't need to supply them with any troop trains. It's kind of crazy though, like the fact that, and then let's look at Army Group South. How was Army Group South being supported? How was Army Group South being supplied? very, very poor supply. Very poor supply. I mean, that also comes into play with the fact that the Germans were not fully mechanized, but also the Soviets had problems too. They also had a lot of problems as well. You know, it was not until the Lend-Lease trucks arrived from the Americans that the Russians were able to, you know, kind of cut back on their problems with supply. Hmm. Well, there's a lot of sources that say the German logistics system, it did depend heavily on railways too to supply essential depots. Then, whilst motorized transport was used, a surprising reliance on horse-drawn transport was also evident. And the thing about Russia was they used a different gauge to Germany, so before supplies could flow by rail, the rails had to be changed, which slowed the flow of supplies. As they had, like, it's really an exercise in futility, really. When they advanced into Russia, even with the Operation Case Blue, the Nazis, they weren't able to supply the German armies in Operation Case Blue. It wasn't like they were able to supply them very well. They overstretched themselves, really. Army Group South was very much overstretched. I mean, I know the plan was to take the Caucasus and to cut the supply from the Soviet heartland. But they weren't able to do that. They got encircled. Very, very, very long front line. They would have to capture all of those railroad systems intact also. That's another thing. And then they would have to convert the gauges too. So it's like